folks, what happens when the police reimagine themselves going from law enforcement officers to politically motivated censors? This is not a hypothetical question, for I speak of the increasingly politicized Toronto Police Service and how the cops are now more concerned about so-called wrong thought than they are about actual law enforcement. Here's the crux of the matter. It used to be that when Rebel News wanted to attend a Toronto Police Service press conference or contact one of their spokespeople in the media relations department, there was absolutely no issue. And seriously, why should there be an issue to begin with? Don't we all want law enforcement to be transparent and accountable to both the public and the press? But about 2 years ago, things began to change. It was becoming increasingly evident that Rebel News had been deemed media non grata by someone at the Toronto Police Service who apparently has no respect whatsoever for the independent press. For starters, our media inquiry emails were routinely ignored. In fact, our requests for comment were no longer acknowledged anymore. Weird. And even when we would pay a house call to police headquarters in downtown Toronto to speak with a media rep face-to-face, well, wouldn't you know it? Nobody in the entire media relations department was ever available, every single time. Hey, I can take a hint. For some reason, the police were looking upon Rebel News as the proverbial skunk to the garden party. This was evidently clear last year when we planned to cover Chief Myron Demkew's gala in support of victim services at Exhibition Place. Prior to the dinner, it was announced that the chief would be conducting a press conference. Splendid, for we had several questions for the chief. But get this, when we reached out to the corporate communications department of the Toronto Police Service to RSVP for this event, the response we received from spokeswoman Stephanie Sayer was downright jarring. Namely, Rebel News was not wanted and unwelcome. And she put it in writing, stated Sayer, quote, "We only allow journalists who work for accredited news organizations into our media gallery or at our events. Accredited news organizations publish their journalistic standards and practices, adhere to journalistic principles such as fairness and balanced reporting, and have a correction policy. For example, members of the National News Media Council, which reviews and potentially adjudicate complaints from the public about alleged violations of ethical and journalistic standards, are considered to be accredited by us, the Toronto Police Service." I hope that helps clarify things. You will not be permitted entry tonight, end quote. Come again. The cops are suddenly in the business of accrediting and or approving news outlets, deciding who gets a report and who does not. How is that the role of the police? By the way, we responded to Sayer, noting that Rebel News adheres to all the journalistic standards and practices that she had pointed out, and we are accredited by the Independent Press Gallery, the Federal Court, the Federal Appeals Court, provincial courts, and the list goes on and on. We also noted if there is a way to apply directly for TPS media credentials, and we were met with radio silence. And sure enough, when we showed up, well, we didn't get anywhere near the chief. In fact, we were intercepted at the front door. Yeah, they were looking out for us. Check it out.
So, you've been made aware that you're not to attend this event, right? It's a private event?
Oh, I'm not here for the event. I'm just here for the press conference, officer.
Okay, so, again, you're not allowed to enter this building because there's an event going on. It's a private event, so you can't. You've been told through email.
I was dealing with someone called, I think, Stephanie Sayer.
Okay.
And I think she's confused because she said we weren't accredited. Here's my accreditations. We're with the independent press.
Yes, yeah.
And We are accredited for federal court, court of appeal, all the provincial courts. So I did say to her, if there's a special Toronto Police Service accreditation, I'm happy to go through that, and she never responded. So I think there's some confusion on her part. She also said all the news organizations need to follow journalistic standards and practices, and she listed them. And I said, we adhere to all those. And so I'm not here for the event. I don't want to disrupt anything. It's a very good cause. I just want to attend Chief Demkew's press conference.
Well, that would be inside that event, and you can't attend that event. Again, it's a private event, and you've been told that you're not allowed to attend it.
Yet, getting the silent treatment is one thing. Getting arrested merely for practicing journalism in the public domain, well, that's quite another kettle of fish. It happened to me 3 times last year at the hands of the Toronto Police Service, and it even happened to my boss, Ezra Levant. Apparently, our mere presence was enraging the Hamas-holes who were chanting genocide against the Jewish people. Yep, welcome to your new and not improved Toronto Police Service under Chief Demkew. Independent journalists are arrested, while pro-Hamas goons get coffee and Timbits delivered to them on chilly days. But the Toronto Police Service brass was just getting started when it came to harassment of our organization, because we would also find out that some of the cops were also acting as self-appointed censors. Indeed, we obtained proof that Inspector Jack Gurr had reached out to YouTube demanding the removal of Rebel News videos that the police brass found to be offensive. Thankfully, YouTube essentially told Gurr to take a long walk off a short pier. But this new censorious direction by the cops is downright chilling. And if you think you have no skin in the game, folks, well, think again. How soon will it be before the cops in Canada, much like their counterparts in the UK, begin visiting the homes of citizens, typically in the wee hours of the morning, demanding answers regarding certain social media postings that they have deemed offensive? This is the stuff of banana republics. The harassment of Rebel News only amped up in May 2024. The Toronto Police, apparently at the behest of the Trudeau Liberals, actually tried to sabotage our Rebel News live event. Our event featured an all-star cast of speakers, including Donald Trump Jr., Viva Frey, Billboard Chris, Glenn Greenwald, Chris Pavlovsky, April Hutchinson, and so many more. The event was all about free speech. It was all about delivering a message to the Justin Trudeau Liberals that Canadian censorship has gone too far. Our gala quickly sold out, and as far as we could tell, all 400 attendees had a jolly good time. But behind the scenes, law enforcement and government goons were doing everything they could to shut down the event. Yes, you read that correctly. The powers that be wanted to censor an anti-censorship event. In fact, they tried to cancel it outright. The venue hosting the Rebel News Live event was situated in Downsview Park in northwest Toronto. Downsview Park is a former military base. It's now a multi-use facility operated by Canada Lands, a federal crown corporation. The Liberals hated that our event was on real estate they deemed to be their turf. But in the end, despite all their chicanery, the show was not derailed. The show did indeed go on. And it was only after the event, via FOI requests, that we learned what the police were doing, including putting our esteemed guests under video surveillance. I have no idea what they expected to find, but think about it. Toronto is in the midst of its worst crime wave, and yet trying to sabotage a free speech conference was a law enforcement priority? Unbelievable. But again, folks, the question arises, who at the Toronto Police Service is behind this journalistic jihad against Rebel News? Well, because the police will not communicate with us, unless they're slapping handcuffs on our wrists, that is, we can only speculate. But wait, recently a tipster informed us that the person who is the wannabe silent assassin of Rebel News is Natalie Clancy. Who's that, you say? Well, about 2 years ago, Natalie Clancy was hired as the Director of Corporate Communications for the Toronto Police Service. It's a nice gig. Last year, she made more than $200,000 plus benefits. Now, where did Natalie Clancy come from? Well, knock me down with a feather. She was previously a reporter with the CBC. That's right, she's a former journalist herself, albeit one who was bought and paid for by the federal Liberals. Still, her resume goes a long way in explaining why she apparently loathes Rebel News. Rebel is independent media, whereas the CBC exists as a propaganda arm of the Liberal Party of Canada. So what does Miss Clancy have to say for herself? Well, I recently reached out to her. Here were my 3 questions. 1, are you indeed responsible for the ongoing harassment against Rebel News? 2, if it is not you, who is responsible for this? And 3, assuming my source is correct, that you are behind this policy, I find this perversely ironic. I understand that on World Press Freedom Day on May 3rd, 2021, you, along with other journalists and NGOs the world over, signed a petition calling on Russia to stop suppression of the independent media. Why did you stand up for independent media 4 years ago, but now allegedly you are against independent media today? And shockers, folks, radio silence. Yes, yet again, another communications professional earning 6 figures, no less, on the taxpayer dime, can't even be bothered to communicate. But if Natalie Clancy is indeed the wannabe assassin of Rebel News, it's staggering given her background, isn't it? Again, she's a former journalist, and just 4 years ago on World Press Freedom Day, she was taking a stand against Russia, condemning Vladimir Putin's suppression of the independent press. In this regard, if indeed Natalie Clancy is responsible for anti-Rebel News policies, up to and including the arrest of Rebel News journalists for merely asking impolite questions, well, folks, I don't feel mad. I actually feel sad for her, because in the final analysis, it would appear that Natalie Clancy has become what she once hated. Hey folks, I know you love it when Rebel News brings you the other side of the story, but the fact is we need your help. Unlike the trained seals in the mainstream media, we do not get any Mark Carney funding for our journalism, nor would we ever accept it if hell froze over and it was offered. But here's where you come in. Can you please go to rebelfieldreports.com? That's rebelfieldreports.com, and if you're able to, kindly make a donation.